This universal law, in my opinion, completely shifts the way you relate to your reality and completely changes how fast you can move through blocks and create the life that you want. And that is the law of reflections. When I first started learning about this, it felt like the missing piece. I had heard of versions of it before, like the your outer world reflects your inner world, but I never really understood how to use that as a tool, right? It always felt vague or like something people just said when they didn't want to take responsibility, where in fact, this is the law that asks you to take the most radical responsibility. So when I started actually learning this law and applying the law of reflections in a practical way to how I was seeing to myself and relating to myself in the different areas of life, everything started shifting for me. I felt like all of my dreams, my desires, my manifestations accelerated fast and with a lot less effort. So, if you've been working on manifesting your biggest desires, if you've been doing the inner work, if you're already taking action towards your desires, but certain things still feel stuck or just chaotic or heavy, or you're being met with a lot of resistance and a lot of triggers, then learning how to read reflections is going to be a game changer for you. So, at the core of this law, there's something really simple, and that is that everything around you is a mirror of your inner world. So every situation you find yourself in, every relationship, the way that people treat you, every event, every emotion, they're all giving you feedback on what's going on in your inner world. And the biggest thing that I want to emphasize here is that it's always linked to your self image. And your self image is essentially the way that you perceive yourself. So, how you perceive yourself and how you think others perceive you as well. Okay, that is the root. What you believe to be true about yourself, normally that would be not consciously, okay? That's going to shape what's reflected back to you through people, events, physical symptoms, even in your body, even like traffic, getting stuck in traffic, or technology not working, or having bugs in your house, okay? Which is a story that I have told before about how I, at one point, had loads of little insects in my office, and that was a reflection of something that I needed to shift inside. And this is an energetic law, okay? Everything we experience is created through what we call our creator field, or in science, we call it the electromagnetic field. So, this is the energetic field that we're constantly projecting through our emotional state, our thoughts, our nervous system, our actions, our beliefs, our identity. This field shapes how we interact with all matter around us, okay? It shapes what we call in, what happens to us, what gets delayed, what keeps feeling stuck. Okay. So when we talk about reflections, we're not talking about random, like just things happening to you, like coincidences. We're talking about actual energetic echoes from your creator field, letting you know what's still out of alignment with the version of you who already has the thing. Now, I do want to make it clear that reflection can be good as well. Okay. Essentially, when you manifest something that you want, that is a positive reflection, right? If you get yourself to believe that you are worth finding a dream relationship and then you are in a dream relationship, that is a reflection of your inner world, of your self image being high enough in that area of life. However, in this episode, we are specifically talking about negative, quote unquote negative, because nothing is really positive or negative, but negative reflections or essentially triggers. So reflections will be anything at all. Let me just put my phone on silent. Anything at all that triggers you, that causes you an emotional imbalance, that you don't feel just in control of your emotions, you're feeling bothered by something. Okay. So, one of the most important things to understand here is that reflections happen literally anytime you feel emotionally off. So, that could be feeling like frustration, resentment, doubt, sadness, anger, shame. It could be a physical reaction as well, like anxiety in your body, or tension, or illness, or acne, or a pain in your knee, or a pain in your eyes, or anything at all is a reflection. Anything that triggers you, anything that feels uncomfortable, that feels not good, is a reflection in the sense that we are talking about today. It could be also someone treating you in a certain way, or something in your environment breaking down, like a machine in your house. These are not coincidences, and they are not things that are separate from you. They are part of your field and they are a creation of your creator field. And this is especially important to know and to remember when you are manifesting a big shift in your life. And we talked about this in the episode when we talk about major signs that you are in a quantum leap. We talked about how you will be met with massive resistance. That resistance is essentially reflections, okay? So when you're calling in something that requires a huge like identity upgrade, energetic shift, you are going to experience more triggering reflections than usual. And that's not because you're doing something wrong, you're not being punished. It's because your field is trying to help you get into alignment with what you're asking for. Okay. So that it is showing you what is not balanced in your inner world and in your self image in order to show you what you need to change quickly to be able to quantum leap into your next level. So it's like every time you ask the universe for more, your soul or your higher self responds by saying, okay, here's what we need to look at. Here's what needs to shift inside so that you can hold the next version of your reality. So this law gives you essentially the ability to shift any obstacles in your life so much faster and therefore manifest so much faster. Okay. So you need to understand that learning reflections and learning how to shift them will compact what would take you years and years or even lifetimes to learn. It will compact them into like years, months, sometimes even minutes. Okay. So the reflections that we are getting are essentially a guide. Okay. They help you see where you're at with your beliefs, with your self image in the different areas of life, which I'm going to be talking about soon, so that you can shift that quickly and manifest your desires more quickly as well. And I want you to understand that once we truly understand this law, this gives us full control of our life, like source like control of our life. When you learn this, you are on the fast track for manifestation, for soul expansion. You will be able to understand how to create every single situation, circumstance, and relationship in your life. This is truly a super power. And I fully recommend that you really start learning this law and implementing it in your life on a daily basis. So let's go back to the 8 areas of life, which I've mentioned a few times. So if you're familiar with this framework, you'll know what I mean. But if you're not, then I'm just going to break them down for you. We have 8 areas of life. The first one is physical. Okay. So how you treat your body, food, movement, rest, etc. Second one is mental. So that's your thought patterns, your learning, your internal dialogue. The third area of life is your spiritual area of life. That is your connection to your intuition, to source, to your soul. The fourth is your vocation. So that's your work, your soulful career, your purpose in life. The fifth is financial. So that is money, resources, abundance, security, receiving. The sixth area of life is your social area of life. So that will be friendships, that will be romantic relationships as well. And then the seventh area of life is your family. So that's parents, siblings, children, grandparents, or your partner if you live together. So if you are going out but you don't live together, that will be classified in the social area of life. But if you live together, they will be classified as family. And then the last area of life, which is one that is most ignored as adults, and I'm not gonna lie, I do not pay attention to this area of life nearly as much as I should. And I'm getting the intuitive hit that I'm really going to have to be making this a priority in the next year or so, but not just yet. And that is the hobbies slash passion. So that is just joy, creative expression, just things you do outside of work for no agenda, just because you want to have fun, because you deserve it, because you're a human being, okay? When something is out of balance in one or more of these 8 areas of life, especially if your self-image in that area drops below 78%, and when I mention percent, that is just something that I check intuitively when I look into myself or someone else. I can tell what percent they are rooted to something, okay? And under 78%, if you are rooted less than 78%, that's where the negative thing can manifest. So that's why we always want to make sure you're at least your self-image in any area of life is at least 78%. But I digress. Essentially, if your self-image in any area drops below 78%, your field will reflect that back to you in the form of reflections. And as we talk about in this podcast episode, that will be specifically triggering or negative reflections. And usually the reflection doesn't actually come in the same area that you are struggling in. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say you are constantly feeling like you are not doing enough in your work or in your business. You feel like you're behind, you feel unproductive, you feel like you're constantly like dropping the ball. And that's already showing you a self-image distortion, right? You're identifying as someone who is failing, who's falling behind, who's not capable, who's maybe not consistent enough. Now, what's interesting is that the reflection might actually not show up in business. It might show up in your relationship, for example. So maybe your partner starts getting really critical of yourself because critical of you, sorry, because you are critical of yourself in that vocation area of life. Okay. So your partner might get critical, they might get impatient with you, and you might not understand why that is, but that is actually a mirror of the way that you are treating yourself in the vocation area of life. And if you're not aware of the fact that the way that your partner treats you is simply a reflection, then what happens? Well, you will spiral most likely. You start feeling even more not enough. Your self-image drops down even more. You might try to overcompensate. You put more pressure on yourself. And then you're even more behind at work because of that. And your partner feels the tension and responds with even more criticism. And then suddenly the relationship feels like the problem when actually the root is your self-image in the vocation area of life. The reason I bring up the partner example is because the people closest to us will usually bring up the most reflections to us. Okay. So that will normally be like a romantic partner, your kids. Oh my goodness, your kids. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of the times, the root of a certain reflection might have nothing to do with the way we treat ourselves in like the family area of life, but a lot of the times it will come up in the family area of life or in the social area of life because the people closest to us can trigger us the most often. Okay. So what do we do with this? The first thing is to start treating every single emotional trigger, every conflict, every pattern as data, okay, as useful information. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this showing me about the way that I perceive myself, about my own self image, and also tracking it back to the roots. So, looking at the different areas of life and seeing where it's coming from. Now, this is something that intuitively I can test really quickly for myself and for clients. It's often a bit difficult to see for yourself where it's coming up because obviously you're so like connected, you're so emotionally in the situation that it might be difficult to actually test for yourself what the root cause is. That's, by the way, why I talk about the recode method so often, because in that I give you a strategy that literally in 10 minutes you can bring up a reflection, you can bring up the root cause of the reflection, which is the gap, you can release it, and you can call in your manifestation. So that is just a side note. The recode method literally changes lives because you don't have to be super intuitive, or you don't have to like get necessarily a full-on intuitive read. You can get that yourself. So just a side note, we have a link for that in the show notes or in the description box. But going back to understanding the reflection, it will point back to something in your creator field that needs shifting. Okay. This is why it happens at the end of the day. We are not just getting punished for no reason. We get these reflections, we get these triggers in order for us to see what we need to shift inside so that we can quantum leap, so that we can get to the next level, so that we can go back into balance. And when we're at full balance, balance might sound boring, but actually when you're at balance within the different areas of life, when you are emotionally like not triggered, you are like unbothered, that's when you can manifest the quickest. Okay. So I'll share a few more real life examples with you from my own life. Okay. So for a long time, and if you've been following me on Instagram for a while, you will have seen that I have been complaining about my son Alex screaming at night 4 hours every single night since he was about 1. Okay, he was actually, well, he was a terrible sleeper as a newborn. Then from the age of like 4 months until the age of like maybe 13, 14 months, he was the best sleeper. Like literally, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, thank goodness, like he would just sleep 12 hours a night, no problem. Like the worst thing that would happen is like he would like want his tummy or something. And then when he turned Just after he turned 1, he started sleeping really badly. Not just sleeping badly, but literally screaming for hours on end every single night. Now, when I tell you that we saw everyone possible. We saw every single doctor, therapist, acupuncturist, reflexologist, healer, intuitive, everything at all. Nothing helped. And the funny thing is, I knew about the law of reflections for that whole time. But I guess that was just a tough lesson that I had to learn through just I just wasn't willing to look at what the reflection was with me. I don't know why. I will probably figure it out in the future. But for some reason, I just kind of refused. I kind of blocked that out. I didn't want to see what it was reflecting to me in myself. Okay. But eventually it got to a point where I just couldn't ignore it any longer. I said to myself, okay, nothing is helping. Nothing is helping. I know the law of reflections. I know the reason he is acting like this, and obviously it was triggering me so much, it was disturbing my life. I obviously was exhausted, but beyond that, I was just in such victim mode of like, why is this happening to me? I hate this. I hate being a mom. Like, all of these things were happening to me. Eventually I had to look in and say and ask, what could this be reflecting to me? And by the way, this was going on for like a year and a half, I would say. And I realized that at the time my nervous system was completely dysregulated. And that was specifically, the root of it was in my vocation, okay, in my vocation area of life. My career, my business, and my PhD, like I was doing all at the same time, felt really, really chaotic. I was juggling so much constantly. Like, I was doing a full-time PhD. I was starting and scaling my business. I was figuring out how to do this whole like, and when, if you are a business owner, if you started a business, you know that when you start your business, until you scale, until you get team members, you wear all the hats. So I was spending hours every day just learning marketing and learning social media and learning sales. And, beyond obviously the actual skills, back then I was a fitness coach. So the actual skills of like how to improve my coaching skills, how to like learning more about fitness, about nutrition, all of that. That was a lot with having essentially a baby or a very young toddler at home, right? So I was juggling a lot. I wasn't grounded. I wasn't calm. I literally was living in a state of survival for a year and a half. And that internal chaos that I wasn't regulating, I wasn't paying attention to, I wasn't trying to ground myself or calm myself down, that was showing up through my son, through Alex, screaming every single night for hours. I feel like it was almost screaming my own inner chaos, right? So it was reflecting through his inability to settle, and his emotional state every single night was literally just mirroring my emotional state throughout the day. So we would almost flip day and night. And when I finally saw that reflection and I looked into it intuitively and I realized what it was, that's when I started taking nervous system regulation so much more seriously. I created a lot more routine. I delegated a lot more. I started being very, very intentional with my time because I realized I actually spent so much of my time worrying and being like anxious around how do I get to do it all, instead of just like doing it, in a smart way, clearing my schedule more, just doing somatic regulation tools and nervous system regulation tools and breath work and all of that. So I really just A, clear the pressure that I was putting on myself, and B, made sure that I was really grounding myself and regulating my nervous system. And guess what? Once I cleared the pressure, within a few days, he started sleeping much better. Now, let me tell you again, because we are always open and honest here, he still doesn't sleep perfectly. And I know that this is because I am still not at 78% with feeling like I've got everything under control in my vocation area of life. So this is something that I'm working towards, and that is fine. What we do with reflections, as I said at the beginning, is we take radical responsibility. So I am not blaming Alex anymore. I'm not being like a victim of the situation. Every single night, if he cries, he doesn't cry every night, but some nights when he cries, well, first of all, if he cries, it's literally only for like a minute or two, thank goodness. But if he cries, I know that there is still something that I need to shift internally. And of course, I always check whether that is like still in that area of life or whether that's changed. For me, it's still in that vocation area of life. Okay, so really, this law applies to everything including our children, including our bodies, which I'll talk about more soon, including people who aren't doing anything wrong, but they're just holding up a mirror to your internal world. So another example is my husband. So for like literally until probably a month ago, I'm not even joking, my husband did not care what I was doing in my business. Did not care. Didn't ask about it. Didn't want to listen. Didn't even, when I ran a free masterclass about 2 months ago, my whole family like watched a replay. Even my mom's partner watched a replay, and my husband, even though I sent him the link, didn't watch it. And of course, it really frustrated me. It really offended me. And if I didn't know the law of reflection, or like if you didn't know, you would probably think he is such a dick. Excuse my language. He is not a supportive partner. How can he not support his wife when she's on her soul pull business? She is sharing her mission with the world. She is working so hard. But I know the law of reflections, and this can be really frustrating sometimes. So every time I would kind of want him to ask about my business, or like I would tell him and I would see that he's not interested, yes, I might get triggered and that's fine. But then I would remind myself, okay, this is showing me something about myself. And what I realized was I did not fully value my own voice and what I was doing in my business. I didn't believe people wanted to hear what I had to say. I wasn't recognizing my own worth. Again, it all comes down to self image. So it makes sense that my partner, being like my biggest reflector, that he wasn't recognizing it either. Okay. He was just reflecting my inner beliefs about myself. And now, by the way, literally in the last month, and that's how I know I have truly shifted the way that I see myself and my self image around how I see myself and my voice in my business, is now he is a lot more interested. He actually told me a few days ago that he finally watched the masterclass out of nowhere. I didn't remind him, by the way. Okay. This is what's crazy. Like the law of reflections, once you shift your inner world, once you shift your creator field, your thoughts, your patterns, your self image, the world will reflect that as well. Once you truly understand this law, you really start seeing it everywhere. It can be exhausting, but as I said before, it's your fast track to manifestation, okay? You really see it everywhere. You see how people treat you differently when your self-image is in a better place or in a worse place. You see how chaos starts like just feeling better. Your life just starts feeling less chaotic when you shift how you see yourself in one or more areas of life where the root cause is. You stop taking things personally, and this is a massive one, and you start using them as tools. You stop acting like a victim and you stop blaming other people or situations, or just think things are happening to you, and you start understanding that you create everything. Okay, you are a creator, you are a source. This is why manifestation works, right? Like you create everything, good or bad. And once you start realizing this and realize that you have created the bad things in your life, the way that people treat you, events, situations, anything that it is at all, once you realize that you created this, you realize actually how freaking powerful you are, because you can also create the most amazing things. And reflections and negative reflections, triggering reflections are your guide, okay, to getting you there faster. And I also just want to talk about body reflections, because this is a massive one as well. Everything that happens in your body, and boy, this is going to trigger some people, but everything that happens in your body, any illness, any symptom, anything at all, any pain, whatever it is that happens, that is a reflection as well. And there's actually a whole key around if you're experiencing something in your hand, in your eyes, in your back, every single part of your body represents something going on inside. So for example, if you're feeling itchiness, that represents irritation. If you have issues with your legs, that is an issue with moving forward in some area of life. If you have acne, that represents being angry about something, okay? So our body talks to us as well. And again, most of the times it'll start with something small, but if we don't pay attention to the reflection, we don't become aware of it, we don't shift it, that thing will go and become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, okay? Cancer is a manifestation of a reflection that we didn't treat for so long that it just became something massive, okay? Because our body and our creator field will do anything just to get our attention to what needs to shift internally, okay? And again, I just want to emphasize, this isn't a punishment. This is your field, your energy, your higher self bringing things to the surface so that you can shift them so you can realign with your desires, with your purpose, with the next level that's already available to you. You just need to claim it and you need to learn the lessons on the way. What are you going to do? We're here to learn lessons, okay? And reflections are lessons. So just remember that this cycle of reflections will get louder when you ignore it, but it breaks immediately when you become aware of it and when you shift. So next time something triggers you or something feels really heavy, really annoying, someone says something that really hits a nerve with you, don't brush it off, okay? Don't suppress it. But also, I don't want you to spiral. Instead, I want you to ask, what is this reflecting about my self-image, about how I see myself? What might be out of balance here? What is my field showing me so I can come back into balance? Reflections are a really, really powerful tool. They're how you gauge where your self-image is at. They are your personal feedback system for manifestation. And the more you work with them, the faster your life moves. And that is really how you quantum leap, how you create the life that you want, not by avoiding the uncomfortable reflections, but by understanding them and shifting them. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know what reflections you are noticing after this episode, and I will see you next time. Bye.